Hello and welcome to the Side Netting Podcast, the place where we discuss all the latest goings on across the world in sport, focusing on the football, play a couple of games, and then almost definitely go off on a tangent or two. I'm Connor Burke, and I'm joined as always by my friend, my cousin, but most importantly, he's my co-host, Kieran Burke. Kieran, how are we doing this morning, this afternoon, today?
I'm excellent. How could I not be? I mean,
I wonder why.
I don't have a clue.
For listeners' reference, we're recording this on Wednesday morning, the morning after, the night before. How my heart is still beating in my chest today. Let's skip any niceties, any formalities. I know how you are, kids. Arsenal Porto last night in the Champions League. Leandro Trossard scores just before half-time. Makes it 1-0 on the night, 1-1 in aggregate. And then there's chances in the second half, just can't get them over the line. Goes to extra time, couple of chances there, can't get them over the line. Probably should have had a penalty as well before full-time finished. I'm sure we'll get onto that horrific refereeing performance. But it went to penalties. And we never had any doubt of Big David Raya. Not a single piece of slander went on towards the start of the season. And Arsenal go through. How did you cope last night, Kiers? Because I know that I did not cope very well.
I think my Fitbit was about 2 BPM from ringing the emergency services by itself. So, yeah, not great. I was literally sat on the edge of my sofa nearly ripping my hair out throughout extra time.
So I don't have that joy.
Well, you've clearly been an Arsenal fan longer than me, hence why the baldies are... Wow, yeah. They never make it easy, but the thing is, people saying Porto have so much European pedigree. Like they've reached, I think, the semi-final in the last couple of years. Like they're always a tough team to play in, and with the way we play, we're probably not as well suited to play a team in that low block where they frustrate you. They had a 1-0 to come into, which didn't help at all. I feel like if it was 0-0 first leg, which it very nearly was, it might have been a different story.
Different game, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, because once we score the one, they've got to come out a bit more. And then, it's a completely different game. It opens up a bit. But they were very much allowed to frustrate us, and they executed their game plan almost perfectly. Yep. It took a real moment of quality from Odegaard to slip Trossard in.
What a pass that was. Oh, my God.
Unbelievable. I love the enthusiasm from Ali McCoist on commentary as well. He was not holding back.
One of the rare moments in that game that he didn't wind. It was really winding me up last night. Was Ali McCoist. I can't like, and I really like Ali McCoist. Darren Fletcher, I can take or leave, but I do like Ali McCoist. But the constant bloody, the referee has had a good game. What game are you watching? Or he's letting it flow. No, he's not letting it flow. He's not calling blatant fouls.
For me, it was the mentioning how good Wendell was every 2 seconds made me laugh.
He did have a. Do you know who?
He had a very good game.
Do you know who else had a fantastic game last night? And like, it's not a controversial take by any means, but Pepe, defender Pepe, as they kept calling him, old Pepe, bald Pepe, was unreal last night.
Outrageous. He hasn't lost any of that defensive know-how. And even like the little bit of speed you lose as you get older, he's still got enough in him to sort of get back in there.
100%.
Like some centre-backs you look at and you think you're far too slow. Like when you watch Dan Burn at fullback for Newcastle, he's a good defender, but whenever he's up against a Saka,
player with legs,
you can just see it. Like he's not quite got the legs to keep up. But Pepe was he's always right place, right time. Yeah. And I think that flick, the flick at the back post was outrageous for one of them. But
oh, when he just knocked it by, that was unreal. He had no right to get to that. He, by all means, he jumped too early.
Yeah,
and he still managed to flick it on Havertz there on the back post to knock it in. He's just somehow, as you say, full dynamo David Blaine style levitation there, and he's managed to knock it by. He had a fantastic game last night. The other while we're on the subject of commentary, they kept on going how Arsenal haven't tested the goalkeeper, they haven't had chances, and it's like we definitely had 4 like he made a couple of saves.
He had the one where he parried it straight back out to, I think it was Odegaard, and he put it wide annoyingly. But
it came across and it was like it was like an inch from hitting. I think it was Jesus there,
Jesus,
swinging a leg, and it just goes past him. Like, I'm not saying he was busy all night by any stretch, but I think to say that he did nothing was a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think Jesus had a good impact when he came on. I've got to say, I thought
came on. Yeah, him and
that
Zinchenko
energy.
is a story of two very different subs.
Yeah.
One came on straight into the speed of the game, wanted to make an impact, nearly made an impact within seconds of coming on, and the other one genuinely don't know if Zinchenko completed a pass.
Do you know what as well? Like, I understand Kieran's been doing good filling in, but I don't think I appreciated until last night how good a job he's doing, because some of the times where the play just got past him and the strength he had
to get back.
I think that's the real benefit of having players that have played centre-back at full-back. Obviously, City have done it very well in the last few years with the likes of, Akanji, even Stones filling in at fullback as well at times. Like they've done it very well, and you can see Arteta doing that with obviously Ben White, who was a centre back, and Kia were just really solid last night. And Zinchenko came on and just a few times just nearly gave it away, and they were in, and just even 1-on-1 defending. I know it's not his biggest strength, but just well,
even though like his strength's meant to be like on the ball passing and. Like he didn't even add that to the game. If anything, he took away down that left side. It really made it difficult. Like there's been comments about Saka, and really it was one of those games where he was out defended last night. Yeah. As you mentioned there, Wendell was fantastic.
He's very good
at defending Saka. He had the strength from Saka. He was able to position Saka out of the game as well. There was a lot of times where he was basically dragging Saka back into the Arsenal half with him. And that really took Arsenal out on the right side. And so you've got to go down that left a little bit more. And I thought Trossard did very well at that, as did Kiev. But Zinchenko really took away when he came on that latter stage of the game.
Yeah, the thing is with Zinchenko, like he likes to float into the middle, which he done a few times and got on the ball. But the way Porto were playing, like Zinchenko's a great play to have when you're completely dominating possession and you're really just trying to pick apart a low block, which Porto were defending, but they still had that threat going forward and they have quality on the ball. It's not like they're a team that's literally just going to not play a pass and lump the ball up and then you're straight back on top of them. They
had their chances as well. They went at us. They looked a very solid side.
Yeah, they played football as well. Yeah. They've got a lot of very good carriers of the ball.
They were filthy. They were filthy fiends at certain points, and the fact that there was 1 and 3 minutes added on is one of the most diabolical things I think I've ever seen. I'm not going to go back on the refereeing. I'm going to steer clear. But Arsenal are in the quarterfinals. It's the first time since 2010, and I didn't actually, weirdly, maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see anyone saying who the team that Arsenal beat to get out of the last 16 was the last time they were there.
Yeah, I don't know. It was actually.
It was Porto.
Was it?
It was.
History repeats itself.
I was looking at it because I thought it was Barca we lost to in the quarters, and it was. It was 2-2 at home. Fabregas late penalty, and then we lost 4-1 away. Bentner scored that first goal, and then Messi run us ragged. But we beat Porto a lot more comfortably that time. We beat them 5-0 in the second leg.
Would have been nice, but we'll take it.
Unbelievable. It was very much a superstition overload. It was like, once that first penalty went in, I had my hands on the coffee table, and then I was saying the name of the player under my breath, hands over my mouth like a little tent. And once it worked on the first one, you know what it's like? Once it worked on the first one, I had to do the same ritual for every single penalty. My brother was in the room with me, and he was just like dying watching me, just going through this satanic ritual.
Every juju master.
Hey, Did
you put a curse on those Porto boys?
I prefer not to speak.
You can't be using the Mourinho quote against Porto, mate. That's a cardinal sin.
Got a knee slide into the microphone.
If Arteta done a Mourinho down the touchline, that would have just. Did you see the bit of RG? Well, not RG Bargy, but their manager wasn't happy about something or other.
He hates all man. Like he obviously, I don't know if you've seen the quotes about with Klopp, not Klopp, sorry, with Pep before, with Tuchel before. And you know what? If Arteta said something, we don't care.
I hope he did.
We don't care.
Fucking levels.
When you're playing your son like this is Sunday League, like mate, Imagine playing for Porto and the bloody... It's like Steve Bruce with Alex. Like, come on now.
Do you know what? I will say, though, that Cohen Sal, I was quite impressed with him. I thought he's a good little player. They've got, like, their whole middle three they had, so good carrying the ball forward. And like, because they're so, like, small and tricky.
Yeah.
We really struggled with their breakaway because they'd have someone carrying the ball at speed and then they'd sort of lay it off, but then they didn't have the quality on the wings.
That was the thing.
I think that Galeno had a really poor game, obviously.
And then he missed the penalty, yeah.
So,
regardless of how good he was, though, you shouldn't be able to play your son. That's
funny.
That's big Nepo baby energy. We can't be having that.
It's good.
But as we say, we're in the final 8 years, setting up to be a classic final 8 in the Champions League. You got Barcelona, who themselves beat Napoli last night. You got Real Madrid, PSG, Bayern Munich, Man City, Arsenal. As we record tonight, you've got Inter Milan or Atletico Madrid, who are both games are 1-1, aren't they? This coming evening. Yeah, and then you've got...
I think Inter are 1-0 up.
You're right there, Inter are 1-0 up. My bad. And then you've got PSV Dortmund, who themselves are no easy game, but they're going to be looked at as... Whoever wins that game is going to be looked at as the easy team. But really, there's not in that draw. There's an easier team. There's no easy draw there.
We've smoked PSV once already, so we'll do it again. It's fine. I did see, on the topic of the draw and who we might want to get, Rio Ferdinand spouting his usual shite yesterday, saying Arsenal have to want one of the big boys. You know
why?
You got to beat the best to win it. And then I think it was Keown said, "Oh, if United were still in it, you wouldn't want PSV or Dortmund?" He's like, "Oh well, we're not in it, so I can't really say." Like, he's just such a shit talker. Like, I get it. If we want to win it, we're going to eventually have to beat a Real or a City. But
you want to push it back as far as possible. Of course you do.
We want Real to draw City, and then it's one less fucking monster to play.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think I want PSV Dortmund for the same reason that there was that nervous energy about Porto, because when you play a team you're expected to beat, it's a very different energy. I don't know if my heart can take that again.
I really think we'd beat Barca comfortably. Maybe I'm delusional, but I just think they're really not great this season.
I think should and will are two very different things.
Oh, yeah.
And from what I've seen of that Barca team, we should be beating them. Same with PSG, if I'm honest. Yeah. They're another team that we should be beating.
Yeah. At this point,
the only teams that are going to really, like, on paper, I mean, the only teams you're really like, oh, I don't know either way, is Real Madrid and Man City.
Yeah.
I guess if you play Atletico, you're playing the low block team. It's not just any low block team. You're playing one of the best low block teams in the world over the last 10 or so years.
Yeah.
So that'll be
Atletico, I'll be honest.
Atletico, my favourite ground, the old Wanda Metropolitana.
Mate, you're a Wanda regular.
I was there for the City game a couple of years ago, 2022, and it was one of the best atmospheres it was unbelievable. Not that I understood what anyone was saying. Made friends with a nice Spanish lady. But, unreal ground. Big love to the Wanda.
Yeah, I think...
We'll see what happens with them tonight. But what would your pick be, Kiz? As we say, there's no real easy game there. But what would your pick be? Obviously, you want to avoid Real Madrid. You want to avoid Man City. You've mentioned Barcelona. Would Barcelona be the team you're like, I'd fancy it?
Yeah, I think the thing you have to factor in the Champions League is European pedigree. It does come into play. I don't care
definitely.
Whether a team's not great, just being at the stages, that's why the prospect of a Real is probably the scariest thing, because not only are they playing well this season, but they are the Champions League team. Yeah. Like, they've been behind in the past 3-2 down to City with 5 minutes to go and they end up winning. It's just ludicrous. So then
they are that team.
For me, you'd look at a PSV or a Dortmund as the obvious choice. I know there's the whole thing of you might be expected to win, which brings added pressure. But in all honesty, I wouldn't mind Barca, but obviously they do have that European pedigree. But that current team they have there perhaps doesn't. I just think that's quite a young team. They're not full of confidence. They're not doing too great in the league this year. And obviously Xavi's on his way out at the end of the season. I just get the feeling they're there for the taking. Yeah. I'd go into Barcelona confident, but obviously PSV and Dortmund is the obvious. Inter, they're another good side, got to the final obviously last year, and you've got Atletico, who obviously could qualify there as well. One of the two who, as you've said, I really wouldn't want Atletico. If anything, Atletico is probably the team I'd want the least after Real.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
obviously, we
City
had them
as
in
well.
the Europa League semis. Was it
Yeah.
2018, I think it was, and we lost in the semi-finals. That was
Yeah.
they were a tough set of games. I remember them. But really, as you say there, if you can have Real Madrid and Man City on the opposite side of the draw, there's a real chance there. We're not talking it's definite. We're not talking we're there. We're not at Wembley already. But there's a massive chance there. It opens it up massively if you can shift them two onto the opposite side of the draw.
Yeah. There's 8 teams left as well. You've got a chance either way.
Definitely.
Like, we've got
to
to be
in it to win it,
confident
as they
now.
say. Definitely.
So who would you fancy?
As I say before, I think PSV Dortmund, you maybe get lulled again into that false sense of security a little bit too much. That's the sort of easy pick, maybe, but they're the choices that I fear a bit. It's giving Monaco, it's giving AC Milan, it's giving Porto. So I would say PSG.
Okay.
From what I've seen, PSG this season, especially in the Champions League. Do you say about Barca are there for the taking, but Barca have the pedigree? PSG are there for the taking. They don't have the pedigree. They obviously have Mbappe, and that's enough to put the fear in God.
Yeah.
But really, outside of that,
Yeah.
and obviously I'm saying outside of one of the best players in the world,
Yeah.
but outside of that, there's really
mean.
not much about that PSG
Yeah.
team. We're talking a team there for the taking.
I wouldn't be scared of PSG, but just Mbappe, which is a big...
Yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't have the fear as much if PSG were on our side of the draw as opposed to, as I say, Madrid or City. Any of the other 5 teams I want on our side of the draw. As long as these two are shifted over, it's really there. And you can push the Madrid or City to a one-off final and you see what happens.
Imagine we got Real and knocked them out, though, winning at the Bernabeu once more. Well, I think
Saka takes the role of Henry.
Mate, imagine. Ghana Galacticos.
We didn't even get into the discussion of the CBS crew at the Emirates last night.
Oh, golden.
But there was some unbelievable stuff going on there. I unfortunately had the TNT coverage on for the game, but I had the CBS before and after, and it's night and day in terms of quality. Awesome. It's like you look at this. It's just the way that 4 people just work so well together, and then you go over and you look at Keone talking in 1 decibel half speed, Rio Ferdinand talking absolute drivel with one of the best presenters there in Laura Woods, and then you go over and all 4 on CBS just complement each other perfectly. Easily the best coverage, I'd say, of football across the board. But as I see time ticking away from us, Kears, we won't delve too much into that. Well, that'll have to be for another day. Because there's another weekend of football going on. The FA Cup's on, which means a slew of Premier League games cancelled. But there are still a couple, and there's a big St. Patrick's Day special game we've thrown on at the end as the 5th predictor with the 4 Premier League games. It's mostly relegation and Champions League focused this week, Kears. So we'll start off with the 2 relegation games. You've got Burnley against Brentford first off Saturday afternoon.
If you know me, and you know me in Brentford, I'm sticking true to form. I'm going 1-1. Brentford are in real danger of getting brought into this relegation battle. Obviously, we very narrowly and dramatically scraped a win against them.
Big up the Cobra.
Big up the Cobra. They kept us on our toes there. We were a bag of nerves throughout that game. But managed to get the job done. Brentford need to start picking up points from somewhere. Then you look at Burnley. Really, they had to win that game. 2-0 up. They had to win that game really to have any hope of starting to try and build some momentum.
And they nearly got there.
They nearly got there, but for me, it looks like the writing's on the wall for Burnley and Sheffield United, if I'm being honest. I really just can't see them getting out of there.
You think if they're going to have any chance, this is the game they have to win. A potential relegation rival in Brentford, if you can nick some points off them, they're well out of reach, but they've still got that slim chance. And this is a game they're going to need to pick up points to do so.
Yeah, as I said, I've gone 1-1. I think Burnley have it in them to nick the odd point, and I think well, I say tough enough to break down. Obviously, they've been on the receiving end of a few beatings, but I think more recently they've shown they can pick up points, but they just don't have what they need to get it over the line.
Yeah.
So I see a draw in that one.
Yeah, I've gone 2-1 Brentford. Both teams winless in their last 5 in the league. Brentford 1 win and 1 draw in 8. As you say, they really ran us close last week. It was a sort of game that was set up quite well for Brentford in how we play and how they play. But as we always say with Burnley, there's nothing there, is there? Like, they're lucky Sheffield United are in the league, because otherwise they'd easily be the worst team. They've somehow got a team worse than them. I just can't see any hope for them. As I say, there's a slim chance at the moment if they start somehow picking up points. But once they threw that 2-goal lead away last week, that did feel like the last chance there for them, slipping through their fingers. I've gone 2-1 Brentford there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other relegation battle game there, we've got Luton and Nottingham Forest. Luton rescuing a point at the death against Palace last week, is we don't know what the situation on the table is going to be, because they play Bournemouth this evening, and if they win, they can go above Nottingham Forest on goal difference. I need to turn into Brian Badonde off a phone jacker then. They can go above Nottingham Forest on goal difference if they win against Bournemouth. If they don't, then it's maybe even becomes bigger, because a win against Nottingham Forest would still take them above Nottingham Forest. So it's a big, big week for Luton here, where they could get themselves out of the bottom 3, put some pressure on Everton as well, down in that zone. All depends on what happens as we record this evening against Bournemouth, but still a massive game against Nottingham Forest. Which way are you leaning on this one?
Yeah, huge game. I've got Luton edging it. I think based on what I've said throughout the last few weeks about Luton and just having a bit more than the other teams down there in terms of fight, hunger, always being in games, no matter what, if they're 2-0 down, I still fancy them to come back and get something. I mean, point proven on the weekend, obviously last minute equaliser v Palace. They've just got that bit of extra spirit and fight that I don't see in your Forests and your other teams down there. So I think I can see Luton winning that one 2-1. I think if Luton can get a win there, that gives them the platform to really go for it. They cannot lose. If they, obviously depending on tonight as well, but say for example, they lost tonight,
regardless,
and then they lose to Forest, it's a huge blow.
You feel like it's over then, don't you?
Yeah, I know there'd still be 10 games to go, whatever, 9 games to go, but
you have the chance
6 points when you're down there.
Yeah, it's not even narrowing a gap. You have a chance to jump them.
Yeah,
this is your moment.
Big. 6-pointer, as big a relegation 6-pointer as you're gonna get.
In my notes here, I have in all caps 6-pointer.
Yeah,
it's as much of a 6-pointer as get. So you're saying Luton are going to win 2-1. I've got Luton 3-2 for many of the same reasons as you. When you're going at a mentality rate on these two teams up against each other, and it's in Kenilworth Dog, I've just got the fortress. The way that it just all, I don't know what it is about. Maybe it's because the fans are all on top of it. It's a small crowd as well. Everything about it just adds to it. And you look at what happened to big teams going to Kenilworth this season as well. It's been a different situation for Luton, and I think it's going to push them over the line. It's going to help them. By the end of this weekend, I've got Luton out of the bottom 3, and I've gone 3-2. But you look at the bottom 3 here, Kiers, or the 3 around relegation. You've got Luton on 21, minus 17 goal difference. Then Nottingham Forest 24, minus 16. Everton 25, minus 10. Then Brentford 26, minus 12. You look at I don't want to delve too much because as this gets released, the game will have been done. But a Bournemouth loss tonight, I should say, that puts the cats amongst the pigeons before the ball's even kicked at the weekend.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I can see Bournemouth winning tonight.
That's what I expect, but you never know.
But you never know. Luton are a tough old team, but I just think that one on Saturday, and we've spoke about TV selections in the past. I'm quite surprised that's with there being not many Prem games on. I know you've got FA Cup to contend with as well, but no early kickoff, and then you've got Fulham Spurs as the 5:30 on Sky. It seemed a bit of a strange one not to have as big a game being shown. I wouldn't mind watching that one, but big game.
Yeah, I think it might be was already scheduled with the other games that were going on. I'm not, because I know Arsenal, Chelsea are meant to be the midday game, so I don't know exact in terms of scheduling. But even so, with a normal weekend, you'd have this on TV over Tottenham, Fulham, 100%.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, we'll move on to that game next, as you say, Saturday evening, 5:30. This season's mid-table club of mid-table clubs in Fulham against Spurs, coming off a massive win last weekend.
Yeah, big win for Spurs. Was very surprised, if I'm honest, how Villa played in that. I know they got the red card, which didn't help, but already 2-0
What did you
down
make
at
of the
that
red
point.
card?
Not a red for me. Not a red
Likewise.
for me. There was malice in it, but he wasn't super high. He weren't trying to injure him. It was just a cynical yellow. Rough him up a bit, yeah.
It was the archetype of a cynical yellow for me.
Yeah. It was a nasty challenge, don't get me wrong.
Stupid.
But it's not a red card for me.
100%. I'd agree with that. That was my stance, but I know people have gone back and forth on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if I'm honest though, Villa weren't good enough. I don't think Villa can be too. Obviously, it's annoying to get a player sent off, but I think they've only got themselves to blame in that game. They came out, they looked a bit scared. The occasion got to them. Spurs, complete opposite. Fluid.
Looked up for it, didn't they?
Looked up for it. They knew they really needed to win that one, to be honest. And obviously, if they win their game in hand, they do go above Villa and up into fourth, which I think perhaps ties into the bit we said about Villa perhaps dropping off slightly. Even though I did predict Villa to win that game, I saw them dropping off.
Yeah, we've been saying it for weeks now, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's been coming, but yeah, big loss for Villa and big win.
It's almost like we've seen Emery at this stage before.
We have. We've got too much trauma there, and then obviously Fulham coming off the back of a 2-1 loss at Wolves, so not great for them. As you said, they're not really in any trouble, but banging mid-table at the minute, and they're not really looking like they're gonna. Yeah,
you just look at their last 8 games: 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws. Mid-table as mid-table gets.
Yeah, I see Spurs winning this one. I've got Spurs 2-1, but I think Fulham are capable of causing an upset. They've done well against the so-called bigger teams this season, but I think Spurs will have just about enough.
Yeah, Spurs are on a roll for me. I've got 3-1. Maddison and Son back on their link-up that they had earlier on in the season. Spurs are looking on a tear these last couple of games. They look focused in. All the things me and yourself were saying in the weeks gone by, why we think they are going to end up top 4. As funny as them relying on us winning the Champions League to get them in the Champions League would be, I've got them winning that 3-1. I think they're going to just run away with this top 4. I don't think there'll be much of a battle for that by season's end. But the other team at the moment in the battle is Aston Villa, and they are playing West Ham on Sunday afternoon, Kiz.
I've gone Villa 3-0, which more reflects on West Ham. I think Villa will have a bit of a point to prove on the back of that very poor result. West Ham scraping a draw against Burnley, left it late, although watching the highlights, they very well could have won it, although saying that Burnley could have won it as well, had a good chance at the end, which Areola made a good stop. But West Ham just look very uninspired at the minute, I think it's fair to say. They're lacking threat, and they're very open at the back at the same time, which is a combination you really don't want. So I think, West Ham have been struggling. I'm really surprised that they're still up in 7th, to be honest. I think that says more about the quality of the wider group this season. Like the fact United are 6th and have been as poor as they are.
Yeah, you look at those 3 games, they lost 3 in a row. Arsenal 6-0 in there, United 3-0 in there. They lost to Nottingham Forest 2-0. Then they picked back up. They beat Brentford 4-2. They beat Everton 3-1. And as you say, they rescued that draw against Burnley. That is 10 goals in 3 games for them. I've got them winning this. I've got them drawing this, I should say. 2-2. Villa, can they bounce back after such a frustrating and humiliating, really, loss? We'll see. A Villa win, I don't think would overly surprise me, but I think both teams have proven across the season they're not the best coming off of European nights. So I've got a 2-2 draw on that one. So are you saying you had Villa 3-0, was that?
I've gone Villa 3-0. I just think they'll have a bit of a point to prove, looking to bounce back, and I've not been overly impressed. Although West Ham have bounced back, I just still think they're very vulnerable defensively.
Yeah, so that's the Premier League games all wrapped up, Gears, but as all good mathematicians can tell, that's only 4 games on the usual 5. And as it is St. Patrick's Day this weekend, And despite a close loss to England last weekend, Conor Murray, what the hell were you doing?
Fucking hate English rugby.
God bless. Ireland do have the chance to sew up the Six Nations this weekend against Scotland. So I think that's only right on this weekend of all weekends to make that our fifth and final game on the predictions, Kiers. What do you reckon on this one?
Yeah, I'll keep it a bit brief because for those that aren't big on rugby, but we're fans of rugby ourselves, and I think Ireland very disappointing loss last weekend, but I do think they'll bounce back and sew up the Six Nations, which is still a great achievement in itself for an Ireland team that are now without Sexton, who has been the best player easily for the past sort of 10 plus years, really, and been the main go-to guy. So would still be a hell of an achievement. So I do see Ireland winning it. I've gone 34-10.
Ooh,
Scotland,
not just winning it well.
Yeah, winning it well. I think Scotland have had a decent tournament on the whole, but when it's actually mattered and they've got an important game like for Italy, the pressure, they just don't seem to handle it very well. So I think Ireland will run out quite comfortable winners in the end and sew it all up.
Yeah, I've got a lot closer game myself. I've gone 28-23 to Ireland. But similar reasons you say there. I do think Ireland will have too much for them. It's at the Aviva. It's to finish up the Six Nations on a positive after a disappointing result last week. Prevent England from winning it as well in their game against France later on in the evening. And everyone goes off and parties into the St. Patrick's Day night.
Will we be able to actually have vision by the time the France-England game's on? Because I'm not thinking we will.
I think we're going to be carried home by a stretcher by that point. So
sounds good.
A spot on day. But that's the predictions set up and set in. I'll just quickly touch on the scores overall, because we're now drawing after last week. You won 6-3 last weekend. The Liverpool City game you got spot on. Another spot on prediction for you. I think that's two weeks in a row you've had one. So we're 3-all overall, and we are 22-22 on the individual scoreline predictions. So we'll keep track of that.
Keep track of that. If either of us get bang on in this rugby game, then that's unbelievable.
That's 5. That's a full try. We'll give it 5 and a conversion.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, we'll check in next week on the international break. We'll see how the predictions are getting on, and we'll also have to check back in on our FPL, something we've not done in a while, for good reason. To be fair,
I'd rather not.
But that is the end of the first half of the show. And as we mentioned, it is St. Patrick's Day this weekend. So we thought it was only right to bring out a bracket special for the big day. So with St. Patrick's Day being this Sunday, we thought we'd have a special edition of the bracket for today's show. And we discussed a few different potential topics where maybe we'll go another left field one, and it'll be people who don't seem to be Irish who could be Irish. Declan Rice, I'm looking at you. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But we've landed on quite a nice broad one, Kears. We've gone for the greatest modern Irish sports person. Yeah. So you're looking at the last 10, 15 years. I think these all sort of span maybe up to 20 on one occasion. But I'd say the last 10, 15 years, really. And we've gone for 4 football players, because this is a mostly football podcast. And we've gone 4 from the realm of sport. So what 4 did you select this week, Giz?
So I went Johnny Sexton, Henry Shefflin, which quite a few may not know, but we'll delve into that. Robbie Keane, and I went Damien Duff just to throw in a bit of a slightly more left field, I guess, rather than the obvious choices.
Yeah, on the football ones, it was quite broad pickings, because you had a few different routes you could go down. And I think both of us went down slightly different routes on all 4 of our football selections, which is always a good way to be. But went on a similar route, I think, on our rugby picks, because I've gone for Brian O'Driscoll as my choice number 1. And then I've got Roy Keane. Then I've got Katie Taylor. And then I have Katie McCabe as my picks for this week. So we can jump straight into the quarterfinals, Kears, and battle number 1. And we've got Johnny Sexton against Katie McCabe.
It's a battle. So obviously, I can start off with Sexton. So any rugby fans will know, and we've just kind of touched on it there. He's been by far and away Ireland's leader, captain, fantastic, the go-to man in the clutch moments. Just any big moment, he seems to be the one that steps up. Points wise as well, I'm just having a look here. 118 appearances for Ireland, 1,108 points, which is
Insane.
quite astonishing, really. I know he's the kick taker, he takes the penalties, conversions, but for those who watch rugby, you know Sexton's game's about a hell of a lot more than that, and what he does on the ball, general leadership, just an astonishing career, really, and a shame, I think, that Ireland went out in the way they did in the World Cup, because it would have been a fantastic way to send out a glistening career for Sexton, but he's had plenty of success with Ireland, Grand Slams, Six Nation titles, obviously club career with Leinster as well. He's had a good bit of success as well. So
2 massive series wins as well. Sexton, the 2022 one in New Zealand, to beat New Zealand in New Zealand over a series. Unbelievable. Also beating New Zealand in Chicago was another massive Ireland win. And then the 2018 series against Australia. Just some massive general wins he's been a part of for Ireland, and a driving force. That 2018 Grand Slam, you look at the drop goal against France right at the death and things like that. Sexton he's number one pick, your number one seed for a reason, isn't he?
Yeah.
Irish rugby personified.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just having a look here as well. 4 Six Nations, 2 Grand Slams, 3 Triple Crowns. And as you've said as well, that with the British and Irish Lions, the success he's had there. 4 European Champions Cups with Leinster as well. So speaks for itself, really.
100%. And then he goes up against Katie McCabe, who is her own driving force in the Ireland women's team. I think I'll also mention her success for Arsenal women, but the driving force for Ireland women going to their first World Cup, scoring their first World Cup goal from a corner against Canada. And they were drawn in a very tricky group in the World Cup last summer. And to come out of it really with their heads held high with how they performed, obviously disappointing not to go through, but in how they performed, very much heads held high from them. And Katie McCabe being a driving force from that entire team, and what she's done with the Arsenal women's team as well. She's won the WSL, she's won the FA Cup, she's won the League Cup, she's won the Arsenal Player of the Season on 2 separate occasions. We say Johnny Sexton is Irish rugby personified. She's not even Irish women's football personified. She is one of the premier Irish footballers. You think Irish football, she's very much up in that conversation. I don't know anyone really that would beat her out of a top 3, top 5 in Irish football at the moment. Yeah, fantastic choice, I think, and maybe a little bit outside in terms of modern sports people. What she did with Irish women's football in the last 5 years has been immaculate.
Yeah, I think she's definitely, I'd say, a trailblazer.
Yes, that's the word, Kieran. That is the word.
I think I know women's football's been around for a good while, but perhaps more in its infancy in terms of worldwide coverage really emerging in the last 4 or 5 years. And she's been
100%.
Definitely in terms from an Irish perspective. But as you said, winning the league with Arsenal Women's Player of the Season, she's a key player in both of those sides and an excellent player as well. So a good choice.
But now I think we have to come to a decision. A tricky one for 2 different reasons, but I think when it comes to Irish sports people, maybe there is just one choice in this situation.
Yeah, I think harsh on Katie, she's gone up against Big Johnny, but I think he's the man, isn't he? He's the man who can. So hard to go against him.
What he's done in Irish sport over the last 15 years, and the fact that pretty much every non-Irish rugby fan hates him, just makes it even better. So, yeah, I think Johnny Sexton through to the semi-finals there. Now to the next battle, Kiers. We have Robbie Keane up against Katie Taylor. Another Katie. Katie Taylor this time.
All the Katies. Clearly a
2 Keanes, 2 Katies.
Yeah. Robbie Keane, I think, in my lifetime anyway, was the perhaps it's slightly unfair to say only, but he was definitely that. Well, I don't know how to put this, but he was basically seen as the only good Irish player
Oh,
in
100%.
my
You look
lifetime.
at sort of, I'd say in the 2010s, 2000, I'd say 2010 to 2016 when he retired. You think Irish football, you think Robbie Keane is
Yeah.
the go-to player, 100%. And maybe even for a few years before that, you all the way back to the 2002 World Cup. Obviously, Ireland had a much more depth in that team. But just as the years went on, it was like there's Robbie Keane and there's 10 other Irishmen.
Yeah, I think Robbie Keane, it's more than just his football ability because he probably put. I know, obviously, Roy Keane came before him, but I think Robbie Keane just sort of galvanised Irish football. He was the one that kind of dragged them to tournaments, really. I know they've not
2002 World
qualified for
Cup.
everything. Exactly, but he was the one that kind of put the team on his back and almost single-handedly drove Irish football, and everything from the celebration to just the general, like the career.
Knew we were going to get into the celebration.
The celebration has to be mentioned.
That's not enough reason to be the number one Irish sports person, but it's definitely a good reason to put in amongst it.
It puts him up there, but just like obviously he had an amazing career in the Prem as well. Goals record speaks for himself. Speaks for itself. Sorry.
Does the trophy record impact his case here?
I think it has to. I think that's the one mark you definitely have against Robbie Keane, where the likes of your Roy Keane's is probably in Europe, seen as the...
Yeah. In Europe, he won one. I think calling it a major trophy is a bit of a stretch, but he won the League Cup with Spurs in 2008. And then he did win the MLS Cup with LA Galaxy on 3 separate occasions, but
yeah,
when you're talking in this realm, is that much to add to the conversation? Yeah. I'm not so sure. As you say, what is meant to Irish football is beyond trophies. Being part of them going to 2 major tournaments in the 2010s, in the 2012 and 2016 Euros, being a major part of them going to the 2002 World Cup. What is meant to Irish football is massive, but I think when you look at the honours and what he's done, maybe the trophies do let him down there. Katie Taylor, on the other hand, Olympic gold medals, Europeans, Worlds gold medals, the undisputed lightweight champion, someone that is been a part of a sellout of Madison Square Garden, 2 back-to-back massive home fights, one obviously a loss, one a win in Dublin. She is hoping and trying to get that fight at Croke Park, which would be even more impressive for her legacy as a boxer, as an Irish sports person. I think she's my big push to go through in this one, Kiz.
To be honest, I'd probably agree with you. I think as someone who doesn't follow boxing too much, I think it's fair to say she's probably been the face of women's boxing the last 5 years, certainly.
100%.
The big fights I sort of remember and have watched have had Katie Taylor involved in them. So I think, again, I guess it goes back to Trailblazer, but we're talking about women's sport. Katie Taylor really bringing forward women's boxing. And I've heard Eddie Hearn talking about Katie Taylor in her early days, sort of when she's selling out arenas single-handedly, but fighting sort of second on an undercard and then the rest of the fans leaving once she's fought. So she's had that to deal with in her earlier career as well. But she's sort of let her quality do the talking. And definitely happy for her to go through a good choice there.
And the extra one has a little cherry on top as well. She was Ireland's flag bearer in the 2012 Olympics as well. So I think that always deserves mention in terms of being the face of your sport. But Katie Taylor through to the semi-final there, and she'll be up against Johnny Sexton in a moment. But we'll jump to the other side of the draw, Kears. And now we've got 2 big battles here, really, for different reasons. We've got Brian O'Driscoll, the previous face of Irish rugby, and Henry Shefflin, Mr.
Tough.
Kilkenny.
It's tough. Obviously,
do you want to make the case for Henry Shefflin, maybe for the football fans who are listening, exactly why Henry Shefflin is on this list?
Yeah, so Henry Shefflin hails from a little place called Kilkenny, which mine and Connor's fathers are from as well. He has been the hero really for Kilkenny in terms of hurling. So for those that haven't watched hurling before, watch it. It's a quality sport.
Yes,
Just manic, back to back, as end to end the game as I
Yeah.
think you'll see. And
it's like a cross between 3 or 4 different sports.
it's unreal
manic.
to watch. We've obviously been to a couple All Islands ourselves at Croke Park, and just the occasion of it's unreal. But Henry Shefflin, King Henry as he's known. So the final championship final is known as the All Ireland in hurling, and he's won 10 of them for Kilkenny.
Insane.
Which is just, it's unheard of, really. Kilkenny were the dominating force in hurling, really, for about 5 or 6 years there.
They've been
longer than that, really.
Yeah,
but
they've really been a dominating force for the bulk of hurling's existence. But
for as long as I can remember.
But under Shefflin, insane, as you say, 10 All Irelands, 13 Leinster Championships, which is the regional championship there as well. He now manages Galway, which we won't delve into too much. But as a player, basically, as you say, the face of hurling for many, many years. Maybe a bit of a sentimental pick with his connection to Kilkenny in terms of a hurler. And I think picking a regional sport was important in this list as well. No better choice than Henry Shefflin. But he is, unfortunately, up against Brian O'Driscoll, who just, as we say, the face of Irish rugby, the driving force behind Ireland's first Grand Slam in so many years in 2009. He was part of the British and Irish Lions team. Massive, another player, massive for Leinster, winning the Heineken Cup that same year that Ireland won the Grand Slam. A not just Irish rugby player, but a top-level rugby player, full stop. Unfortunately, Henry Shefflin's up against him, Kiz.
It's not a great matchup for poor Henry. I think we had to get a Kilkenny sportsman in there, but Brian O'Driscoll, I think he was really, as you said, the driving force behind the Ireland team, which is obviously coming to shape now. And he set it up really for the success it's had, and obviously Sexton taking over as the main man, and probably has been more successful in terms of honours, but that can't be the work Brian O'Driscoll done can't be unnoticed there.
In and amongst a lot of other players of that Irish team, but Driscoll being the face, O'Driscoll I should say, being the face of that team, 100%. Oh, have we got any battles in terms of picking Brian to go through here?
No, I think O'Driscoll's the obvious choice. I think universally loved as well. When we're talking about hurling, it's very much rivalries inter-county.
And we say and Sexton we say about being hated. I don't think you get many haters of Brian O'Driscoll as well. We'll go into the final battle. It's 2 footballers now, Kears. We've got Roy Keane, my mate. Roy Keane, friend of the pod. Roy Keane, been on many of these 5-a-sides and brackets and lists for very good reason. Roy Keane up against Damien Duff.
I think this will be a quick one. I was going to pick Roy Keane, but solely because we've spoken about him so much on this podcast. I did avoid him, but I think he's the obvious choice. Yeah. Damien Duff. I put him in there, a bit of a cult hero, Damien Duff. I just remember him back in the Prem.
Yeah, considering he played for Chelsea as well, he is a player that is close to my heart. Ireland making me like Chelsea players and Tottenham players.
Yeah,
alike.
Fiends.
Yeah,
fiends. But shout out to Damien Duff. He was a great player, and in an era where, as I said on the Robbie Keane point, there really wasn't many at all. So
as you say, we'll make it quick. We'll make it swift. Roy Keane going through there. What a final 4 we've got here, Kiz. We'll start off with Brian O'Driscoll against Roy Keane.
This is a tough one.
This is a really
tough one. Both incredibly successful in their sports. I don't know. I get the feeling amongst Irish people, O'Driscoll would definitely be the more popular choice, purely with the falling out Roy Keane had before that 2002 World Cup. I still feel there's a bit of a sour taste for a few Irish with Roy Keane, as much as, he's still loved and obviously was the Irish player and probably still is in terms of success. He's the most successful Irish player of all time.
For me as well, outside of Irish players, he is the most Irish person I think I've ever seen. So he's a man that has a very sweet spot in my heart, but there is only one choice here in the end, isn't there, Kiz?
Yeah. Yep.
Brian O'Driscoll into the final. Will it be an all-rugby final, Kears, or is it going to be Katie Taylor surpassing Johnny Sexton here? What's your instinct? What are you saying here?
My instinct,
maybe
Sexton,
even a bigger battle.
Yeah, I think it's a tough battle, but I just think Irish rugby has been the sole source of joy, I think it's fair to say, for Ireland as a nation in terms of team sports. I know I'm not by any means gonna sort of brush over Katie Taylor's achievements and what she's done in the field of boxing and the success she's had. As I've said, trailblazer, shone a light on women's boxing that no one else has really, and I think that can't go unnoticed. But part of me feels it's only right the final is between Ireland's most successful sport, really, which has been rugby, and the two greatest to do it. So that's my thoughts, but open to argument.
I like that, Kiz. You've sold me there. I can't lie to you. You've sold me that. I was gonna make much more of a case there, considering what Katie Taylor has done over the last 10 to 15 years. But I think you can't go past a Johnny Sexton, Brian O'Driscoll final here. I'm happy for Sexton to go through, but as you say, you can't take away from what Katie Taylor has done for Irish sport over the last 10, 15 years herself. But we've got Johnny Sexton now, Kears, up against Brian O'Driscoll in the final.
Ooh, it's tough.
Who's going to win the bracket? Who's going to be Ireland's best modern sports person, according to us, the most preeminent judges of all such things?
It's tough. It's very tough. I think when you look on paper, it's easy just to say Sexton, obviously 4 Six Nations to O'Driscoll's 2 Grand Slams. But then you actually think about what O'Driscoll done in terms of impact in getting that Ireland team over the line for that Grand Slam, which was huge. But then obviously Sexton in recent years has just been the driving force, and obviously that team's been built around him, and it's not just solely him. But Ireland, I know they've not got it over the line in a World Cup, but even going into World Cups, they're in that conversation.
They've been number one in the world many, many times, yeah. And
I think Sexton is a massive, massive part of that. It's a really tough one.
What are
your thoughts?
I sort of echo you there. It's very close. I think you look at both of them in terms of leaders as well. You can't even separate them in that regard, because you look at Ireland over the last 10 years and the way that every player looked to Sexton.
Yeah.
And before that, every player looked to O'Driscoll. But I think you just have to give the nudge, sort of 99% to 100%. You just have to give the 100% to Sexton.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
There we go. Well, congratulations to the St. Patrick's Day inaugural greatest Irish modern sports person bracket to Johnny Sexton. Now,
well done, Johnny.
Well done.
Deserved.
Well done, Johnny. Before we go here, Kiz, we obviously do a song every week, and we don't usually really talk about it. But I think for Paddy's Day, we need an Irish song to see us out. Now, I've got 2 that I'm going to let you pick from. Either 7 Drunken Nights or Irish Rover.
Oh, I think it's got to be 7 Drunken Nights.
An excellent choice. Kears, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you, everyone else, for listening. This has been the Silent Podcast, the #1 podcast for modern Irish people and those that can only count to 3. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a good one. Goodbye.
And as I went home on a Friday night, as drunk could be, I saw a head inside the bed where my old head should be. Well, I called my wife and I said to her, will you kindly tell to me who owns that head with you in the bed where my old head should be? I love you, you silly old till you cannot see. That's a baby boy.